After future Kale received the picture of the time machine, they asked Bulma where exactly it was located. After being told it is in West District 1050, future Kale and Gohan head there, while Bulma goes there as well. When they all reach the time machine, they still look inside and find an egg of an unknown creature. Then after looking at the time machine, future Kale realizes it arrived there 4 years ago, which was a year before she did. Up on the lookout, Kame was peering down on the Earth as he then tells Piccolo that they soon will face a being far stronger than the androids. Back with future Kale and the others, they put both time machines into capsules, while Bulma gathers the eggshells. Before they leave, Gohan spots something and goes over to investigate, which is when they see the molten shell of a giant insect. This is when they speculate it was whatever was in that egg in the time machine, then they all take off afterwards. Then with the androids, 18 was trying on new clothes, and after taking an outfit, the cops chase after them, but she easily knocks their car away. Back with Kame, he notices something down on Earth and goes silent, much to Piccolo's confusion. Then with Bulma, she hears the breaking news over the radio about all contact with Gingertown being lost, and that all its inhabitants suddenly vanished. Which is when she realizes that Gingertown is nearby the time machine they found. Bulma then calls Krillin and Kame house and tells them to check the TV, which is when they see the report about Gingertown, though the TV report shows the inhabitants' clothes scattered around, like they melted away, but since they had a rifle out, they think they were fighting something. Gohan and future Kale then arrive, which is when Krillin has them watch this news story as well. Back on the TV, they hear the investigative team and police shooting at something, but it then goes silent. Then the reporter is attacked by something and screams for help, but it goes completely silent shortly afterwards. Then up on the lookout, Kame finally decides to merge with Piccolo, and after they agree that Piccolo will be the one to be the dominant mind, Kame says his goodbyes to Mr. Popo, as he then merges with Piccolo. Piccolo then goes down to the Earth, while back at Kame house, future Kale prepares to go investigate things in Gingertown. Gohan wanted to go, but Chi-Chi stopped him, so the present version of Kale goes along with her future self. Then at Gingertown, Piccolo arrives, while the mysterious creature comes up behind him, which he realizes right away. Which, this freak of nature was currently holding the richest man in Gingertown. When Piccolo tells him to let this man go, he complies, but he then uses his tail to absorb the man, thus killing him. The creature then tells Piccolo he's next, which shocks him, as he asks the creature how he knew his name. It then powers up, which is when the heroes know they feel the key of Frieza, King Cold, Goku, Vegeta, Kale, and Piccolo all from the same key signature, so future Kale decides to head off and investigate. Out in the wasteland, Vegeta notices this as well, which shocks him. Even Tien and Shotsu notice it, though it is confusing to them as well, when this creature refuses to say who he is, as he says he can kill Piccolo easily. Piccolo goes on to tell him he has the wrong man, which confuses the creature. As Piccolo starts to power up, both versions of Kale and Krillin were on their way there, which is when Krillin realizes Piccolo merged with Kame, but they notice right away when Piccolo begins his battle with the creature, as they can see the explosions from far away. Even the androids noticed, so 17 pulled the car over, and even though 16 didn't know who was fighting, he mentioned one of the Powers rivals, 17 and 18. Back with Piccolo and the mysterious creature, the fight goes the same, with it eventually revealing he sent himself in the time machine. It then uses the Kamehameha, and as Piccolo jumps out of the way, it grabs him from behind and starts draining his arm. Though he breaks out of this and, while saying he is lost, he asks the creature to explain what they are. The creature then goes on to explain that his name is Cell, and he was made by Dr. Gero after he collected cells from Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Cold, Frieza, and more. He also mentions the robots that collected the cells, which is when Piccolo blasts a nearby one. The Cell goes on to explain it is too late to stop it from being created. Regardless, he then explains how he needs androids 17 and 18 to become perfect, so Piccolo then rips off his drained arm and regenerates it, as him giving up was just a trick for Cell to explain who he is. Though Cell then realizes Piccolo merged with Kame, but before he can do anything else, the Kales and Krillin arrive. Then after Cell finds out from Krillin that Goku is alive, he uses the solar flare and makes his escape. While Cell is fleeing, he sees Vegeta on the way to the battlefield, which shocks him to see that the Saiyan Prince is alive and stronger than he expected. Anyway, Vegeta then lands, and after Tien arrives, Piccolo fills it in on everything about who Cell is. Vegeta then swears to transcend Super Saiyan and takes off, as they wonder if he really can do what he said. Kale, future Kale, and Krillin then take off to destroy the Cell of their timeline, while Tien and Piccolo stay behind. They then go back to where Gero's lab once stood and find the basement containing Cell, and after they find the blueprints for 17, they blow up the lab. Then while Tien and Piccolo try to chase Cell, he keeps hiding his key and fleeing before they can find him. Back with Krillin, Kale, and future Kale, they go to Capsule Corporation and give the blueprints to Bulma and Dr. Brief. They then start working as fast as they can on fighting the weakness of the androids. Back at Kame House, Chi-Chi and Master Roshi find that Goku is waking up. They try to talk him out of going to fight right away, but he reveals he isn't. He says he plans to try and transcend Super Saiyan instead. He then convinces Chi-Chi to let him take Gohan with him to train, so he teleports to Bulma's airplane and explains his plan to use the Room of Spirit and Time. He then gets Gohan, Kale, and future Kale, before going to get Vegeta too, which he manages to convince Vegeta after he promises that Vegeta can go in first. But so Vegeta doesn't go in alone, and since neither of the Kales like Vegeta, Goku would go into the chamber with Vegeta. Goku normally only goes into the chamber for one day, but since no one is willing to go in with Vegeta, he decided he'd go in for a day with him and then for a day with Gohan, since he never planned to use his second day in the chamber. As for Kale and Future Kale, they would head towards Kame House, since Goku and Gohan are going to be the ones to go in next, so they'll just wait to go into the chamber after them. Then back with the androids, after 18 got a new outfit again, they went to Goku's house to find him, but no one was there. They then went to Kame House looking for Goku, but when Piccolo stands up to them and 17 threatens to make him talk, Piccolo has them go to the nearby island. He then takes off his weighted clothing and powers up, as he starts to knock 17 around. Their fight essentially goes the same, with Piccolo seemingly having the upper hand, while 17 says they should go elsewhere since that island is being destroyed. Cell notices them fighting, but regardless, at the new location, 17 gets serious and starts beating Piccolo around at first. When he gets serious too, they seem to be even in terms of strength, so they both trade blows with each other. Then at Kame House, Krillin gets a call from Bulma about her making the self-destruct remote for the androids. Regardless, Cell then arrives at the battlefield, so Piccolo and 17 stop fighting. As Cell then powers up, Krillin and the two Kales fly to meet Bulma halfway, since they'd be too late if they just wait for her. Tien then goes to help Piccolo, but Master Roshi tried to stop him from leaving. As Piccolo tries to get 17 to flee, he refuses, as he tries to fight Cell, but he's getting beaten down. Piccolo then would step in, but his attacks leave the bug monster unscathed. Cell then breaks Piccolo's neck, blasts him through the chest, and throws him into the water. Then as Cell approaches 17, 16 decides to step in and fight, even though it isn't against Goku. Before Cell manages to absorb 17, 16 punches him away, as he and Cell then start to trade blows. Their fight goes the same, with him failing to absorb 16, as he then rips off Cell's tail. However, since he has Piccolo's cells, he manages to regrow his tail. 16 then blasts Cell into the ground with his Hell's Flash. Then as he tells 17 and 18 to flee, they refuse to since they think Cell is dead, but 16 tells them he isn't. This is when Cell comes behind 17 and absorbs him, thus transforming into a semi-perfect form. 16 then tries to get 18 to run away with him, but Cell easily knocks him down. When 16 tries attacking him, his punches do nothing, so he blasts him away and turns his focus to 18. Cell then tries to use 17's voice to trick 18, but it doesn't work. Tien then comes in and starts using his Neo Tri-Beam continuously, which pushes Cell down into the ground. However, he eventually runs out of energy and falls to the ground, as Cell rises out of the crater. Before he can kill Tien, this is when Goku and Vegeta would be exiting the time chamber. So, Goku hurries up and teleports in front of Cell, saying that in one day he will be able to beat him. He then grabs Tien and Piccolo and teleports away, much to Cell's confusion. Meanwhile, Krillin and the Kales meet up with Bulma and get the remote, as she then heads up to the lookout to give the armor she made to Goku, Gohan, and Vegeta, though she also gets the Saiyan armor she made to the two Kales as well before she leaves. Anyway, back at the lookout, for how Vegeta and Goku's training went, it wouldn't have been much different than Vegeta and Trunks'. Goku and Vegeta aren't close at this time, so he mainly refused to work with Goku when in the time chamber. So, while they would have gotten some gains in the time chamber, Vegeta's power is roughly the same as what it was in the actual timeline. Regardless, Bulma then arrives and gives the armor to Goku, Gohan, and Vegeta, as he then takes off to take on Cell. Meanwhile, Cell begins destroying island after island to draw 18 out, but before he can destroy the island she is on, Vegeta arrives as a Super Saiyan. So, the two then land on the ground, as Vegeta then starts to power up, with 18 staying hidden as she watches Vegeta and Cell. Eventually, he turns into his ascended Super Saiyan form, as they start fighting. Vegeta would be beating Cell down, as he then tells Cell not to hold back, so he begins to power up. Even with Cell not holding back, Vegeta was still beating him easily. Meanwhile, Krillin, Kale, and Future Kale arrive, as they realize the androids are nearby and neither Cell or Vegeta has noticed, so they land to try to deactivate the androids. Cell eventually throws his tantrum and says he could have won if he achieved perfection, which intrigues Vegeta. Meanwhile, Krillin gets close enough to the androids to use the remote, which, since he was interested in Kale in this timeline more than 18, he was actually going to use the remote. However, Kale was more interested in 18 too, so, like Krillin in the original timeline, she would be reluctant to deactivate them. Kale will then steal the remote from Krillin and crush it, which shocks both him and her future counterpart. 18 would notice this as well and be shocked that she went against her teammates to save her in 16. Then when Vegeta allows Cell to absorb 18, he flies up and notices 18. However, future Kale hurries up and gets in his way, as she wasn't going to let Cell get his perfect form. As she turns Super Saiyan, Vegeta then flies in and kicks her out of the way, though she then blasts him in return. She then rushes towards Cell, but he uses a solar flare to blind future Kale and the others, which, this is when he then absorbs 18 and starts to transform. Future Kale then tries attacking Cell to stop him, but her attacks have no effect, so he does achieve his perfect form. Meanwhile, in the time chamber, Gohan manages to become a Super Saiyan for the first time. Regardless, Krillin then tries to attack Cell, but he is easily knocked away. Future Kale then goes and gives him the Senzu Bean, which is when Krillin says Cell was holding back. Cell gets ready to go in space against Vegeta, but none of Vegeta's attacks do any damage to Cell. When he's eventually knocked away, he starts to charge his Final Flash, while 16 tries to attack Cell from behind, though Cell tells him it's futile. Regardless, Vegeta goads Cell into taking this blast head-on, which Future Kale realizes this blast could destroy the Earth. His Final Flash blasted off one of Cell's arms, but he regenerates it shortly afterwards. Vegeta then desperately tries to attack and blast Cell at this point, but the two of them get distracted by Future Kale on the sidelines. She was getting angrier as time went on, mainly getting angry at both Cell and Vegeta, but mostly Vegeta. Not only did he ignore their warnings about toying with Cell, but he also essentially doomed them all by letting Cell absorb 18. He also carelessly let Cell attack and almost kill some of the other heroes, such as Krillin. Also, he almost destroyed the Earth with his Final Flash just to try and show off that he could defeat Cell, even though his attack did nothing. So, this anger would build up, and as she starts yelling in rage, she slowly rises into the sky. As lightning strikes around her, she gets bigger in size as her hair takes on a green tint. She finally managed to achieve her legendary Super Saiyan form again, after Vegeta pushed her anger over the edge. Which, when she starts attacking Vegeta, even though he trained in the hyperbolic time chamber and she didn't, he doesn't stand a chance against his form. So, he would be getting pummeled easily by Future Kale, especially since he already used up a lot of his energy by using the Final Flash. She eventually hits him hard enough to throw him into the ground, which is when he reverts to his base form. This power shocks Cell, as he was curious what it was, but he goes to try and take on Future Kale. In the meantime, Krillin takes the Senzu Bean to Vegeta. Anyway, even with Future Kale's massive power, her being bulky and fighting uncontrollably would make it hard for her to land a hit on Cell. However, he would likely have to use more of his power against her than what he did against Future Trunks, as he starts to pummel her. Krillin then escapes with the unconscious Vegeta, while in the meantime, Goku was in the process of surpassing Super Saiyan himself. He would first go into his Ascended Super Saiyan form, which is a surprise to Gohan, though he manages to push it even further into the Ultra Super Saiyan form, but he quickly explains the drawback of losing speed in that form to Gohan. So, Goku returns to his base form and tells Gohan that they must focus on making Super Saiyan their natural form. Back with Future Kale and Cell, he eventually gets bored of not having a good fight with her, but he was interested to see how strong Vegeta and her became. He would then knock her unconscious and throw her to the present Kale who was watching on in fear. As he goes to kill them both, he starts to think and asks if they had more time, could they improve even further? Kale says they can, since Goku is training to defeat him now, and her and her future self are supposed to train next. So, Cell tells Kale that he is going to announce a tournament that will take place in 10 days, and to watch the TV on the news for further information. He then leaves as Krillin and Vegeta return, and they all discuss the tournament. Even the Damage 16 says he'd join if they took him to Capsule Corporation to get repaired, so they all leave the battlefield as they wait to hear Cell's announcement.